hey, UFC 319 in Chicago didn't give us the fight of the year like we might have thought in this fantastic on-paper matchup for the middleweight championship that on the way out, we talked about Chimaev's dominance. There's also this growing minority of, man, how boring was that? We'll get into all that stuff. But first and foremost, Khamzat Chimaev controlled and physically dominated Dricus Du Plessis en route to unanimous decision 50-44 on all three judges' scorecards. Round 3, a 10-8 round as he opened up a cut over the eye of DDP. I don't know if I've seen someone dominated exactly like this thoroughly in a title fight. You know, we've seen quick knockouts, but this was a different story. Luke, how impressive or how impressed should we be by this complete dismantling of a pound-for-pound top fiver who was 9-0 in the UFC and just beaten 4 straight current and former champions?
I think if you lose this bad, I don't know if you should still be in the top 10 pound for pound. Can I be honest about that?
The old Crawford Spence bit, right?
Well, I mean, if he lost 50-44 across the board, should you really be pound for pound if you're losing 50-40? Like, no one should be able to beat you.
I dropped him from 4 to 10 on mine. No, 5 to 10. Number 5 to 10.
Okay, I mean,
because I did the same thing with Pereira. I'm like, look at the run they had. This was a bad performance. Maybe now for Pereira, we go, well, he was kind of more hurt. Yeah. But you don't take that excuse.
Well, I mean, I'll just say it's worth thinking about whether you can lose like this and maintain pound for pound status. It's a debate, but it's certainly open to question. I have mixed feelings about this performance.
You didn't enjoy it? I'm not saying the fight was traditionally entertaining, and I'm not standing up for it in that regard, because I understand why people would hate this. But there was some Floyd Mayweather brilliant performances too, where you could say it didn't light up the airwaves, but man, that was fun to watch how he just systematically destroyed that other guy. I
don't really agree. I mean, everyone's going to be different, and everyone's going to have a different feeling about what mattered to them or what they cared about or what stood out. So, like, I'm one of these guys where, like, if you enjoyed it, cool. I don't really have an issue with that. I don't think that's crazy. But I've seen a lot of lecturing, including from fighters who are just completely fucking wrong, saying that if you didn't like this performance and if you didn't like the grappling, you're a casual. I couldn't disagree more. I think that's completely insane and off base. Let's sort of unpack what happened here. First of all, Zippy Hendo who would have this one. So that one, it's not quite as bad.
Okay, but whose fault is that? Is it more the guy doing the mauling?
The majority of the fault goes to DDP.
And his coach. And
yes.
After 4 rounds, they have no answers. Open mouth kiss each other. Do something to try to spice up the bedroom, right?
Well, I mean, you just have to take risks, at that point.
That's risky.
But the point I would make is clearly the reason why I thought this fight could go bananas is not that you did not think that Khamzat was better in the grappling department. Like, you kind of took that as a given. But the question was, could DDP have enough defensive grappling and then just, assertiveness through the course of a bout to have these bursts of offense and life, and like what could that do to the course of the fight?
Or stay alive long enough to see if this man has that championship round gas tank.
Right.
That's the key.
So there's a few of these things that we were looking for, and he was so deficient in the grappling that we really never got out of first gear.
Yeah.
That was the issue. Offensively, this fight stayed in first gear the entire time. The majority of the blame has to go on DDP. His coach even said that they were not prepared for the mounted crucifix, to which I have to say, well, somebody didn't watch tape, because at Brave 18 in November of 2018 against Marko Kisic, Khamzat Chimaev went exactly into mounted crucifix. You had to have known that this was at least partly something that he would pursue.
Also, that sounds so lame to be like, well, if it wasn't for this one move, we would have won. So you were talking about Dennis's interview on Submission Radio.
Yes.
I think people should check it out. It almost completely exposes that guy without him realizing it.
Yeah, he doesn't seem to realize how bad he comes off, but he comes off bad.
Blaming the fans, blaming the referee. I mean, I thought it was almost gratuitous how they stood that fight up in round 5 and gave DDP
I disagree. I thought the stand-ups were fantastic.
I guess I'd have to rewatch them at the Zapruder link. You did, but you wouldn't tell me in real time. You weren't like, wait.
No, I was waiting for it. I thought he could have stood him up earlier, actually.
Interesting.
But the point is this. Clearly, the majority of the blame goes to DDP for being unable to extricate himself from seemingly anything. Being on his back, being on his base, standing, leaning up against the fence, one knee leaning up against the fence. He had no ability or very little anyway, to remove himself from the situations that he was in. His defensive grappling got audited. What I think is kind of interesting about that, BC, is if this was an interesting moment for all the other contenders, because now you see all the positions that DDP got stuck in. you also have to have an answer for all of them too.
Exactly.
Otherwise, you're going to be back there as well. So it was an interesting revelation, but I just...
Well, it was finally Chimaev being forced to show us
a little bit more.
full depth of his game.
Yeah.
Maybe not the full, but a lot more than we knew.
But I have a big problem with the way Chimaev fought this fight, and I'm sorry that I do. He made a concerted, strategic decision, okay? The strategic decision that he made was he was going to keep chest-to-chest or chest-to-back connection, I should say, at basically all times. And there's a good reason for that. It's actually a very smart play. The play is, if you can maintain these kinds of connections, it makes it vastly more difficult for the man underneath to get out of that,
Sure.
right? It is a way to put pressure and lay weight on top so that they are stuck in whatever position, either hands to the mat or back to the mat, whatever is being exposed in that moment. If you go back and you watch, there's almost no place when, as long as they're touching one another, and if Chimaev is in a dominant position, where there is distance between his chest and the back or chest of DDP. But the problem with that game plan is that that is maximally designed to maintain positional control, which is why it worked so well.
But would you say he looked for a submission when it was there, or are you saying this was more purposeful to basically be like, if you're not going to change this, we're going to go the distance just like
What
this?
I am saying is, if you're going to fight a game plan where you are that aggressively pursuing chest-to-chest and chest-to-back connection, you are making a choice to severely limit any kind of meaningful ground and pound, and you are making a choice to severely limit what kinds of submission opportunities are available to you. He waived on a bunch of different things that were very accessible that he could have gone to because he was more prioritizing the pancaking control. So I have plenty of appreciation for the skill it took to do that kind of a thing. But dude, it's not difficult to imagine. Put your chest on the ground and try and punch around you. There's nothing you can really do. You have to create posture. If you want to pass, for example, Chimaev got stood up in the fifth. When he got stood up in the fifth, BC, he had chest-to-chest contact on DDP. DDP's guard is open, and Chimaev has both knees on the ground. Ladies and gentlemen, you cannot pass in MMA with both knees on the ground, and you cannot ground and pound in MMA making chest-to-chest contact. So, what is your offense from there? You made a choice to have minimal offense in favor of maximum positional control, and the fucking audacity of people out there, fighters and media alike, being like, if you don't like this, you're a casual. No, you're a fucking casual.
I feel like this drives you nuts.
For asking me to jack off to 21 minutes of positional control. I understand it is skillful, and I don't mind it. But make the argument where it is. That is a choice to minimize your offense in an offense-first sport. I don't have to think that's awesome. You're fucking wrong. Period.
Man, these people live inside of you.
It drives me. I just can't stand the currency
Where does
that
it
we
drive
give
you?
terrible arguments because certain people from authority are just declaring that this is how it is. No, the fuck it isn't.
All right,
no,
well,
the fuck
let
it
me
isn't.
push back a little. You would say, or maybe you wouldn't. He went for it in round 3, getting the 10-8. While there were times in the crucifix where it's just dabbing the side of the head for volume, that seemed to be a time where he prioritized trying to get some elbows in. He didn't cut him. Okay, maybe you didn't see that consistently in that want to end it. But what if he didn't know the true answers to the gas tank issue? And I had some people DM me even before the fight on Saturday and be like, you guys are missing that he fixed his nose and all that's going to be behind him.
DDP or Chimaev?
Chimaev. I don't even know if that's the case. All I know is you truly don't know if you have that 5-round stamina until you're in a crazy fight. What if this was more about that? Basically,
so if you're going to make the choice to maintain those kinds of forms of connection, it doesn't mean that there's no chance you could get something in the submission department, or that there's some kind of errant shot, might not cut him with an elbow from a short distance. For example, Matt Hughes used to get mounted crucifix, and his elbows in that position were so devastating, they would call the fight from there.
Yeah.
So he was able to maintain positional control with dominant ground and pound. But again, it's not an either or question, BC. It's a question of, it's just a range of possibility of what you're limiting. To your point, in that third round, was he opening up a little bit more? Sure. And look at the results. I think that they spoke for themselves. he could have done more offensively and simply chose not to. Now, the point you raise about the cardio, to me, is actually very interesting. Again, if you want to make the argument he was being diligent and patient about his offense, then make that argument. But don't make the argument that that is also simultaneously something that's not offensively muted.
No, it is. Like,
you have to make that argument.
You're right. If he did this 3 or 4 more times in a row, then it would be a totally different conversation about, is there one dominant style that's making this sport boring? You know, I mean, people are already doing that, of course, in MMA Twitter, that like, see, we've got too many, you know, Chechen and Georgian guys. I'm of foundationally of the other belief of like, try and stop it. I know that if he did this 3, 4, 5 more times in a row, he would kill his marketability. You can only be so popular like that. But I'm just talking about from the one time, even though we didn't get the fight of the year candidate or this back and forth action fight, I'm still more of the, I appreciate the shit about what he just did and showed us. He's got 12 finishes and 15 wins. So we know what his intentions are in fights. I looked at this as a little bit like when he fought Gilbert Burns, and I actually thought he lost that fight. But I thought he unnecessarily was willing to try to show the world that I'm not just a wrestler. I got a backbone. Like, I'll fight to the death too. Like, I am that guy. He showed that. He passed that test. I almost felt like this was the opposite. Like, he wanted to show the world, now that I'm fully healthy, I'm not fighting once a year for 3 out of 4 years. I don't have gas tank issues. I'm ready. This is what I can do to everybody in this division. So, look, if he fights this way every time, we're going to have a problem where he's not maximizing his strengths completely. He's killing his potential, you know, crossover stardom. I mean, did you hear the pops before the fight show you the momentum he's on and how badly people want this guy to be for real? I believe he'll go for the finish more in these next fights, but I think he was entering a 5-round fight knowing it could be a war against a guy whose gas tank has never failed him, and he basically said, let me take that strength, that thing that he has over me, let me take it away completely by putting the onus on him. I'm going to gas him out. I'm going to constantly be on top of him. Anywhere he's going to go, I'm going to cut it off, and I'm going to make him force a type of rally that's going to leave him open to make a big mistake.
Yeah, he won on positional control. We're just saying the same thing a different way. But that is
also, to me, was fascinating as shit to watch. You know what I'm saying? I was fascinated by I mean, remember when Justin Gaethje was on our show and said if one guy can hold you down, then that means 2 can rape you?
Yeah. I mean, I don't understand these arguments from people where it's like, hey, we're not going to count takedowns as offense in MMA, unless you slam them. But we're not going to count takedown in MMA because the reward for the takedown is, well, now you got the fight on the floor because you wanted it there. What is the reward for achieving a control position from which you can do nothing else? This is it. It's just more of the control position. Like, there's a value to that, and I acknowledge it. And it's hard to, like, can everybody do what Khamzat did if they choose to maintain those same kinds of connection? No, Khamzat is very, very good. But to your point, I think it's also, we should say this. This could be one of those scenarios, BC, where, hey, listen, if Khamzat loses this fight, he's one of the biggest what-ifs in MMA history at that point. You know, there may have been a lot of pressure on him. And so he chose to fight in a way where this was a safer approach to get the dub on route to 25 minutes.
Yep.
But that doesn't make people being like, I didn't necessarily love a safe approach from the guy for being wrong, nor is it us saying necessarily, to the point you raise, hey, listen, he might go out there against, let's make something up, RDR, and just really open up on him on the ground.
Sure.
Absolutely. But what I'm saying is, in this fight, he made a concerted choice to be offensively conservative. That's just the reality.
I think it was all things at once. I think it was both impressive. I think it was also, to what you're saying, taking a foot off the gas a little bit, where maybe he could have taken a little bit more chances and got the finish. I think he was also, part of him was that artistry of, I want to show you now that I'm finally here exactly what is possible. I can completely shut down your game.